A flustered Trump supporter ran into Robert De Niro, turning an ordinary sidewalk into a scene for an unscripted Meet the MAGAs sequel. Without a script or stunt doubles, De Niro responded with a verbal left hook. "Take that stupid hat off. You're a bunch of clowns. When you see the guy get elected, you're a pedophile." These words, directed at the Trump supporter, sparked an immediate reaction. The incident occurred when the Trump supporter approached Robert De Niro. The enraged man's face betrayed a storm of emotions, veins bulging in his neck, face flushed with anger. He had just learned that his favorite conspiracy theory was not supported by the healthcare system. Outraged shouts, finger-pointing, and all-consuming energy of indignation. And against this backdrop, De Niro's imperturbable calm. It seemed he was simply waiting for his latte rather than being at the epicenter of a verbal attack from a man whose political views seemed to be formed from slogans on car bumpers and experiences in drunken brawls. These people are true heroes, worthy of admiration. They risked everything, standing on the front lines for these insignificant individuals for Trump. They lied under oath, violating the law and moral principles. Who exactly lied under oath? What kind of people are these? What is this even about? And then two figures appear in the frame, standing behind the very traitors. Accusations rain down. They lied under oath. They are traitors. Confusion and misunderstanding in response. What are you talking about? The atmosphere escalated to the limit. The dialogue reached a dead end, words losing meaning in a flood of emotions. "I don't even know how to talk to you, my friend," sounded like an admission of powerlessness. Suddenly, a freeze frame and dramatic music underscored the tension of the moment. The focus was not just on an actor, but on De Niro, the embodiment of cinematic composure, a guru of maintaining composure in the most explosive situations. His presence was like an oasis of reason in a raging sea of absurdity. While the fervent Trump supporter gesticulated like a malfunctioning inflatable advertising man at a car dealership, De Niro remained unperturbed. He did not flinch, did not stammer, and did not even change his posture. It was like a dispute between a brick wall and a leaf blower in which the victory was obvious. A critic from the MAGA camp unleashed all known insults on him. He spoke of Hollywood, of elites, of puppets, spewing the standard set of cliches from the arsenal of selective discontent. The opponent tried to portray De Niro as dim-witted, insignificant, deceitful, unscrupulous, calling him a con artist and a parvenu who did not understand what he was talking about, did not prepare, and despised society, evaded taxes, and was generally an idiot. One is reminded of Colin Powell's words calling Trump a national disaster and a disgrace to the country. The speaker was outraged that the state had reached such a state that such a fool was in power. At this time, De Niro stood calmly, demonstrating complete composure, as if saying, "Dude, I've played with mafia bosses who are scarier than your tweets." Such incidents are not new to him. He has repeatedly faced streams of criticism and insults. And, it must be admitted, Trump's supporters have perfected the art of mockery, turning it into a kind of sport. The particular piquancy of the situation is how little it affects De Niro himself. Over the years of his career, he has honed his famous gaze, capable of incinerating, and mastered the art of elegant destruction of opponents. Does anyone seriously believe that he can be embarrassed by shouts about MAGA or quoting memes from Facebook? In the past, De Niro was attacked by directors with Oscars speaking in a dozen different languages, demanding the impossible from him. Compared to that, the current attacks are child's play. Perhaps it is worth facing the truth and recognizing the impending threat. If Trump returns to the White House, many freedoms that are now taken for granted may disappear. And this is what particularly worries Trump's entourage. De Niro is not just withstanding the onslaught, he is using the situation to increase the pressure. He does not retreat, does not back down, does not try to soften the situation with apologies, and does not blame the media for everything. Trump's former protege probably believed that he could intimidate the actor, forcing him to shut up, but in the end, he only provided him with a broader platform and strengthened his determination to speak out even louder. On the one hand, a raging ocean of emotions fueled by simplistic logic and blind devotion, and on the other, a calm and methodical analysis armed with sarcasm and a deep knowledge of Trump's missteps. Is democracy threatened in this election? According to the actor, absolutely. Democracy is a precious gift that, unfortunately, is often taken for granted. Many do not even realize the true meaning of this word, not understanding that at the heart of everything lies a simple distinction between good and evil. And in this situation, according to the actor, Trump's actions cross all boundaries. It seems he deliberately seeks out the most repulsive actions to achieve his desires. De Niro's criticism isn't just a superficial display of outrage. It's rooted in years of observing a man mired in luxury claiming to represent the interests of the people. Watching someone reveling in a billion-dollar fortune denounce perceived depression all while expecting applause is a spectacle worthy of an absurdist's pen. This scene, unfolding on the street, became more than a fleeting encounter. It was a stark snapshot of a deep cultural divide: cacophony versus composure, hysteria versus truth, theater versus principles. And then, like a character from Trump's entourage, this man departs, continuing to shout his convictions, unwavering in his belief of victory. In this moment, the poignant image of Robert De Niro comes to mind, along with words filled with bitterness. "You said terrible things about me, Mr. De Niro. Why don't you like me, Bob? There's nothing to like about you." The icy response: "Is that so?" "Absolutely." A universal longing echoes in this exchange. "Is there anything you like, or do you just not like anything?" one asks. "Nothing really," the other retorts. "And like a sentence, there's nothing to like about you? Is that right? But there's more." The final argument is deployed: "You're a sad actor, Bob. Well, the Oscar was rigged. You never won it. You never won it when it was rigged." Dominion. De Niro merely glances over his shoulder as if to say, "Classic." Indeed, this isn't just a random outburst from an aging actor having a bad morning. It's a reflection of an era, a mirror of a society where values have been turned upside down. Robert De Niro has dedicated himself to the cause related to Donald Trump for far longer than some of the latter's lawyers have held their positions. He didn't just join the anti-Trump movement, he was one of those who paved the way for it, organized it, and then defiantly watched the Trump supporter train go by. Even before the situation took an utterly bizarre turn, De Niro was calling Trump dangerous, unfit, and incompatible with American ideals. Back in 2016, when many in Hollywood preferred to ignore politics unless it involved film deals, De Niro was already acting as a lone resistance fighter. He didn't resort to hints or evasive phrases. His statements were straightforward and sometimes clumsy, lacking elegance and wit. Some believe that this directness hides a deep-seated insecurity. He has been called a malignant narcissist and a socially psychopathic individual, a person who created his own language to describe those like him at awards ceremonies. He transformed once carefree ceremonies into something akin to nationwide psychotherapy for a country in denial. Red carpets, traditionally symbols of glamour and success, have turned into political minefields, and De Niro seemed to take particular pleasure in fearlessly navigating them. Each interview became an opportunity for him to inventively and mercilessly criticize Trump, as if he harbored a personal vendetta against fascism. He didn't mince words, wielding them like an enraged chef, and used every public appearance to crush the carefully orchestrated lies that Trump and his cronies were trying to impose on society. While many celebrities preferred to remain silent or speak evasively, fearing for their ratings, De Niro openly called Trump a threat to democracy when half the country still considered what was happening just another season of a reality show. He didn't care about ratings, possible negative reactions, or hypocritical applause. He considered it his duty to dump the truth on the public like a dump truck loaded with irrefutable facts, overturning onto a stage built of fake patriotism and cheap populism. Former Chief of Staff to Donald Trump, General Kelly, reminded the public of scandalous episodes when Trump expressed admiration for Hitler and spoke dismissively of fallen American soldiers. Against the backdrop of these statements, concerns are increasingly being raised about the cognitive health of the ex-president, whose speech is becoming increasingly slurred and whose behavior is becoming increasingly unpredictable. Added to this is the promotion of the scandalous Project 2025, which has sparked a wave of criticism in society. Against this backdrop, De Niro's figure stands out as a symbol of uncompromising opposition. He doesn't just criticize Trump, he tears him to shreds, unafraid to return to this topic again and again. For De Niro, this is not a way to draw attention to himself, but a matter of principle. When a Trump supporter tries to silence De Niro with familiar slogans, he encounters a man with years of accumulated, carefully formulated, and calibrated rage behind him. And that's just the beginning. The latest chapter in this multi-year saga unfolds not at a glitzy press conference or in a popular talk show studio, but right on the sidewalk, on a street in New York City. Here, De Niro feels at home, while for Trump supporters it seems like open season on those they disagree with. In the middle of the day, as ordinary people go about their daily lives, a fervent Trump supporter suddenly appears, deciding it's the perfect moment for a solo protest performance. He starts shouting accusations at Robert De Niro, calling him a traitor, an America hater, and mentioning something about Hunter Biden's laptop. It was probably the first time he'd ever written about you. Robert De Niro, a man perhaps not known for his high intellect, judging by his gaffes, and who has also taken quite a few blows to the head from real boxers on film sets, which some believe may have affected his clarity of thought. At the end of his tirade, this person shouts, "Wake up, Sleepy Joe," at De Niro. And this isn't an isolated incident. He continues his attacks on social media. Robert De Niro, whose acting abilities, according to many, have noticeably declined and whose reputation is tarnished, is now forced to resort to a teleprompter to utter his filthy and disgusting language, showing disrespect for his country. In fairness, the question arises, is a teleprompter necessary when it comes to former President Trump, or is it enough to simply improvise, sharing your thoughts about him? And there he is, De Niro, standing steadfastly like a statue, embodying the principle of not today. Not a trace of agitation, not the slightest sign of panic, just absolute, unperturbed disagreement embodied in a person. This man seems to have faced mafia bosses, corrupt police officers, and even Joe Pesci himself in casinos. But now De Niro remains calm, composed, and sharp-witted as if he's been preparing for this kind of absurdity his whole life. And what's truly striking is that De Niro has been the object of ridicule many times, but this time he didn't just brush it off. He used the moment to show his true self. After all, it wasn't just an ordinary street altercation but a miniature reflection of the tactics used by Trump's supporters to shout, intimidate, project their own shortcomings onto others, and hope that the volume of their voice will drown out anyone's honesty. However, De Niro met this attack head-on, showing restraint, firmness, and a calmness that even a monk would envy. No sooner had the talk about the sensational sidewalk story died down than Robert De Niro once again captured everyone's attention, committing an act worthy only of himself. It seemed he had been waiting for this moment since 2016 to double down in his flamboyant manner. Yesterday's protest by Robert De Niro stirred up a storm of emotions. He was called a fool, a broken man, standing his ground. He received his share of criticism, and quite a substantial one at that. Many consider this trial unfair because his foolishness is too obvious. Insults were hurled at De Niro: punk, dog, pig, swindler, artist, mutt, not understanding what he's talking about, not doing his homework. He was accused of indifference to society, playing with it, evading taxes, and called a complete idiot. As Colin Powell aptly noted, De Niro is a national disaster, a disgrace to the country. What is outrageous is the fact that the country has reached such a state that such a fool has found himself in such a high position. He allows himself to talk about wanting to punch people in the face, and many feel the urge to reciprocate. De Niro seized the microphone, or rather, the media, and turned it into a real spectacle like fireworks at Yankee Stadium. Instead of a simple answer, there followed a crushing attack of truth, turning the Trump supporters' frantic outbursts into a childish tantrum against the backdrop of slot machines. De Niro acted not vaguely or circuitously but with surgical precision. He debunked the image of Trump, this masquerading billionaire, with a ruthlessness that surpassed even the capabilities of the tax authorities. De Niro emphasized that the man who positions himself as a defender of the common people has spent his entire career trampling on their interests, handing out tax breaks to his privileged friends like free samples in a supermarket. But De Niro didn't stop there. He exposed Trump's mountain of legal problems to the public: numerous accusations, criminal investigations, lawsuits, hush money payments, secret documents hidden in places not even intended for archives. It seems that if the Department of Justice kept track of violations, Trump would have long since received a lifetime pass for free coffee. A despicable, loathsome, hateful individual, that's how many would characterize him, emphasizing the absence of any redeeming qualities or signs of contrition. Elections are always a choice, and voters, regardless of social status or intellectual level, have the right to vote. However, as De Niro points out, the victory of a certain candidate can have serious consequences, even the disappearance of dissenters from the political scene. De Niro dared to point out what many prefer to ignore: it's not just about the candidate's legal problems. He has turned corruption into part of his image, a kind of campaign slogan. It's a carefully planned scam, a deception skillfully disguised as patriotism, seasoned with anger, and served to voters as something truly American. De Niro is not just an actor entertaining the public. He is a citizen who has analyzed the situation and pointed out the obvious: the scandals and lies surrounding the candidate are not accidental but part of his strategy. The candidate's staff, of course, rejects such statements, calling them a Hollywood tirade. But if you look at the facts, at the list of lies, fraud, and manipulations, it becomes clear these are not just words but a serious accusation that requires legal assessment. Dairo demonstrated a rare combination of wit and deadly accuracy. He didn't just react to the situation, he unleashed a barrage of facts, backed by irrefutable evidence. He provided the receipt, as they say. Remember how Donald Trump ran in 2016 and it seemed like a ridiculous joke? Who could believe that this clown was seriously running for president? We forgot the lessons of history which reminded us of other seemingly harmless characters who were underestimated until they became despotic dictators. And now Trump promises to use the army against his own citizens. This already smacks of tyranny. He openly declares his intentions, and now is the time to stop him, once and for all, depriving him of power through voting. Let's be frank, Dairo has more courage than most of the political establishment. And he doesn't have to worry about the consequences of his words. He doesn't have to be re-elected, he doesn't depend on the approval of political committees, he doesn't care about the risk of offending major sponsors. After all, as we know, his sponsors are people like Scorsese. He could quietly remain silent, receive his fees, and enjoy life in a luxurious penthouse in Manhattan surrounded by rare Oscars and exquisite imported espresso. Sometimes only a legendary figure can express what has long been brewing. Dairo is not just playing a role, he is filling a gaping void, a moral and civic vacuum created by the indecision of politicians who prefer to remain silent instead of taking a firm stand. And here comes Dairo, whose voice is loud and unstoppable, whose sincerity is admirable, and whose words have absolutely no consequences for the MAGA movement. And he is not alone in his impulse. Celebrities like Dairo become accidental heralds of truth not out of a desire for a political career, but because current politicians are increasingly resembling faceless extras. I owe a lot to the city, Dairo declares, emphasizing the absurdity of Donald Trump's presence in New York. He doesn't belong in my city. I don't know where he belongs, but he definitely doesn't belong here. New Yorkers once tolerated him when he was just another businessman posing as an important person, a playboy trying to break into the tabloids. The actor, known for his directness, chose a peculiar tactic of self-presentation, calling it himself for himself. This technique, according to observers, was intended to mislead the press and artificially inflate his real value. Many consider this to be nothing more than clowning, but the cultural subtext of such behavior deserves attention. Dairo's uncompromising position certainly goes beyond a simple rejection of a specific political figure. It is about a conscious refusal to accept the absurdity of what is happening as the norm. To tell the truth, you don't need a high platform or universal attention, you only need personal courage and conviction. It may seem strange to some that actors become a source of moral clarity in society. But Dairo did not aspire to this role. He was simply tired of waiting for someone else to take responsibility for what was happening. He consistently exposes the contradictions, lies, and ostentatious patriotism that crumbles to dust when confronted with facts. The actor, apparently, does not care about universal love and recognition. After all, if we look at the truth, it was never just about one person with his signature frown and intolerance of hypocrisy. No apologies were made for his position. Of course, not everyone can possess Dairo's courage and directness, but everyone has a voice. And in an age of universal uncertainty, silence ceases to be a neutral position. It turns a person into a faceless extra against the backdrop of unfolding events. And then those who were destined to play a decisive role come onto the stage. The time has come for the main actors in this story to appear.